right, well, let's jump into talking about intake. Um, as we were thinking about topics, and ultimately, how do we share knowledge and best practices that will ultimately improve everyone's firm? We can talk about, marketing all day long. Obviously, we talk about social media best practices. I mean, all those things are important to our business. But man, if we're investing time and dollars into networking and marketing and advertising, we better be stewarding those opportunities and those leads in the best possible way through our intake process. It's amazing to me how a firm can do such a great job at bringing in potential clients, but then if you don't handle that process very well at all, it's like you're driving up your cost per lead or your cost per acquisition of a client significantly. And I used to be famous for this saying, incremental changes equals exponential impact. I've probably said that on this call multiple times because I just think it's so powerful. If you can make a small change in your marketing, a small change in your intake process, a small change in your billing process, all those little small changes can end up exponentially getting you better results, right? So if you're already spending the time, you're already spending the money, why not try to improve processes by a little bit all along the way to otherwise be capturing more in the end for virtually doing nothing, significantly different. So let's start. I would love for you all to share like baseline, what's your intake process look like right now? So walk us through high level. This is how we get clients. This is how they contact us. This is how we potential clients communicate with them, and this is how they become a client. Who wants to dive in and share your process with us? Erica, you look eager.
Hi. Yes, hi there. Good morning, everybody. Yes, so how we're handling intake is that lots of times people call us from our website or from, we try to have a social media presence, but we don't really get a lot of leads from social media necessarily. We just are trying to get the name recognition. But from our website, we get the calls from the website. Also, just some other sources like our pages from Martindale and Thomas Reuters, all of those. And then they connect with us. We have people in the office that will collect information for about 5-10 minutes from the person's calling. And then if it's something, an area that we handle, they will set them up for a phone consult with me. So I've been doing the phone consults for about 15 minutes to gauge whether it's a client that we can help and whether they can afford the services. And then from there, we take them to the next stage by sending them the contract. And if they want to come in and meet in person for a consult, an hour consult, then they can. But sometimes it's something that, like if they want a will, I can go and send them the flat fee agreement and the questionnaire, things like that.
Sure.
If it's a divorce, they don't come in for that. Well, now with COVID, everything's really been over the computer.
Right. Do you charge a fee for your in-person 1-hour consults, or how does that work?
We charge, I charge $150. My mentor here wants me to charge the whole billable hour, and I haven't done that yet, but I charge $150.
Okay. Anybody else? And one quick question clarifying. So whenever you are doing sending them of the documents and everything, is that all via email, or do you have like a software that you use?
Yes, CleoGrow.
Oh, you use CleoGrow. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. And then so we have all those stages from the initial phone call, it's like new client intake, and then they move them to 15 minutes. Then they can move over to the hour consult, or sometimes they'll just skip over that hour and go to the next stage where we're sending them the contract. Right when we set up the consult, we send them a questionnaire up front. Really prior to doing CleoGrow, when they would come in the office for those consults, we'd have like a 1-page consult information sheet. It wouldn't be the full, because first I have to see if I want to work with them and if they want to work with me and if they can afford the fees. So the questionnaire in the past had been a 1-page. It was a consultation agreement, and then also a consultation intake form that was just that 1 page, not the large intake form for a probate or for a divorce. It was just
Okay. Okay. Great. Anybody else want to share your process? Not everyone at once.
Well, I'll speak. In our town, everybody closes north of Nashville. Everybody closes from 12 to 1 for lunch. It's like a custom in the area that's been going on in the legal profession as far back as anyone can remember. And I don't do that. So we answer our phone live with the secretary from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every single day, Monday through Friday. And that has made a huge difference because people will call on their lunch hour or they'll call between 5 and 6. And from an intake standpoint, I think that's made a difference versus you call somewhere else and they're like, press 1 for so-and-so, press 2 for intake, press 5. I mean, I don't know. And that might be old school, but that's what I'm doing and it seems to be working.
Well, are you the answering service? First of all, what's the answering service you're using?
I'm not. I have a full-time secretary.
Oh, it's your person. Sorry, it's your internal person. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
So I can talk about our process. We're a little bit different. I'm not an attorney. I do our business development. So actually, Mike, I'm with you. I'm celebrating this is my best week since I've been with the firm as far as bringing in referrals for the company.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah. So what I can only talk about my process. When I get a referral, somebody in my network that needs an attorney for one reason or another, I will sometimes give them options, or sometimes they say, no, you make the recommendation of who you think would be the best for me based upon what my needs are. And then I do that email introduction. The attorney usually will follow up on a call and then send out an agreement, and then go from there. That I can only talk again about my process, not what the individual attorneys do, but that seems to work well.
I like your marketing on KMOX. I like what you've done with different lawyers talking about different topics. So kudos to Carmody for that.
Yeah, thanks. So we really we've gotten a lot of positive feedback. It was very economical and they were very easy to work with.
I like that you use different lawyers. I mean, it's not all just the named partners, but different folks talk on different topics. So that was good.
Thanks. So,
Chris, where are you located?
We're in Clayton, Missouri. So we have one office and 56 attorneys. We pretty much do it all with the exception of criminal and personal injury. So I've been there about 3.5 years, and I'm pretty much, although I oversee our marketing, I'm pretty much dedicated to our business development.
So you're fielding potential new clients. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So although I will try to get additional business with existing clients, most of the business I bring in is new to the firm.
Hey, Chris, would you be willing to put in the chat the name of your firm so I can take a look at your stuff
Sure.
that you were saying?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's Carmody McDonald. I'm sorry, but I will put it in chat right now.
Thank you.
So Chris, whenever someone like a potential client might call into the firm for practice areas that you're not facilitating those introductions, do you know how that works? Like, is it a receptionist at the front that answers all the intake calls, or is there someone in the back office that answers those calls? Like, I'm thinking if people are just calling in for a divorce case off your website or whatever. Do you know how that process works?
Yeah, I most likely it goes to our receptionist, who will then will field it out to whoever may be appropriate.
Transfer it or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else want to share? I thought I would share, our clients are all sort of different and their sizes are all different, obviously, too. I mean, the volume of calls from potential clients coming into even a 10-lawyer firm could be lower than the calls coming in from a 5-lawyer firm, based on how those leads are coming in. If you're a corporate transactional and you're doing a lot of external client development, similar to probably what, Chris and Mike are doing, you just don't get those calls, right? Like if they're calling you specifically because you're in this relationship with them. But if you're doing plaintiff's work and you're doing, divorce, more individual practice areas, you're representing individuals, you're more likely to get a higher volume of calls. And so we have worked through with our clients. It seems like every firm is in a different place in what works best for them. Some of them have their internal receptionist answering the call, and a lot of that is dependent upon the skills of that internal person too. Sometimes you've got someone in that role that's great at administration, greeting clients coming in the door, taking care of, operations, but maybe they're not the greatest over the phone, or maybe their job is so consuming with everything that they do with the firm, they can't always like handle the calls in a substantive way, based on their workload. Some people do use an answering service, some of our clients, and there just aren't that many good ones out there, right? I mean, many of you have probably experienced the woes, and then you decide one day, okay, I'm gonna try it again, and then you try it again, and you only be disappointed again, right? I mean, we kind of dabbled around with, should we offer that sort of service and build it out at some point, because really it's like picking the best of the worst, right, in our industry in terms of answering services. But it's that conundrum, right, of how do I maximize my internal people but not spend too much on hiring someone just to answer calls if I don't have the volume for that. But outsourcing, there can be downsides to outsourcing too, and the quality of the answering of those calls. So there's a lot of considerations for sure. And I thought, one thing, I made a couple notes of things maybe to offer us all to maybe think about and even discuss. And the first one I think is measuring, how many of you are measuring, or at least looking at actively how many calls or let's call them opportunities, right? Or deals, right? Because some people aren't getting calls. I mean, how many potential clients are interacting with you or engaging with you in any some way every month? How many of those potentials actually turn into consultations? How many of those consultations turn into retained business? Can you speak a little bit to, are you measuring it, or say, nope, I'm not measuring it at all? So let's talk about that a little bit.
I'm measuring it. I have every single consultation and the result of every one for the last several years. And I have we call it a realization percentage. And, if it's under 50%, that would just tear me up. But, there's some months I do an average of 22 to 30 consultations a month, just depending. And, I've had as high as a 90% realization ratio if you extend it out a little bit, not necessarily within that month.
Sure.
So I think my realization percentage is over 90%, but that's at a 6-month review, because some people take time to come back. We all know that. But I think that is crucial, absolutely crucial fact that you need to know. I'm the managing partner, but of every one of the lawyers you do, because if you see a low realization ratio, that lawyer's not closing, and you need to figure out what's going on. That's just me. That's my perspective. So.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're doing it. I think that you should feel very good about that. That's very high compared to what I've seen across other firms. And that's probably because you're doing a fantastic job of bringing in the right types of opportunities, right? If you're bringing in a higher volume, knowing, okay, our realization, and to use your word, is maybe going to be a little bit lower, but we know we're getting more at-bats, right? That's one thing versus, nope, we're going to bring in the right types of opportunities and then close a high percentage of those. That's fantastic. Anybody else are willing to admit, nope, not measuring at all?
I was going to say, I think that's a really good point about understanding realization doesn't always come immediately. I work with a lot of small businesses, transactional work, and so a lot of my clients have to budget for it. So I may have to spend 2 or 3 extra calls, discussions, getting that, but in the end, it will convert to a client. And so, setting your own expectations of, okay, I have a good lead, a hot lead from a referral source or whatever, and it's not going to convert immediately, but putting the work in, it will eventually. Understanding your client's business cycle is critical to that, and knowing the data.
Yep. Well, and for you, Mike, and Chris, I don't know if you do this, but I always encourage people on the transactional sort of like project side, especially if you're doing like fixed fees. But if you understand your average case value, then you can even start assigning, okay, I know my average project value or my deal value is whatever that number is, $5,000 or $10,000. So I know if I'm bringing in 5 potential opportunities every month or 6 for easy math and I'm closing 3, well, then I can start now seeing how that will translate to revenue. We do that with our clients now too, where, okay, now we know the average divorce for this client is $9,000 per divorce. Okay, well then we know if we've got to do something specific with cash flow, we know exactly how many clients we got to bring in to realize, and we also know the average length of time, right? So if we bring in new clients on this date, we know they're likely to be done with their divorce within 12 months, 13 months, 9 months. I really encourage people to measure if you're not measuring, because you can then start to dive into how that actually impacts your business at some point. Anybody else want to share? So one of the things, my background was coming from a high volume law firm, larger firm, high volume. And that's where that exponential changes equals exponential impact, or incremental changes becomes exponential impact came from. And what we started noticing is that whenever we were answering the calls, we were measuring the amount of time that the calls took. We were measuring the conversion percentage. So how many of those calls actually turned into consults, right? And then of course we also measured how many of those calls turned into clients. At some point we realized that actually time on the phone is irrelevant, depending on what your goal is. If you go into that call with the goal of getting a consult, we just want to get them in the door or get them on the phone with an attorney, that's our goal. Well, then you really want to be measuring the quality of that call, right? Not the amount of time it took. We don't care so much, or the volume. Okay, operator, receptionist, how many calls are you taking and how long are they taking you? If you can spend more substantive time, but ultimately get that person in the door, well, that's an opportunity gained. Now that's a fine balance, right? Certainly you don't want to be having your intake person or your receptionist on the phone for an hour with a potential client, and there's only so much they can answer anyway, not being able to speak to legal issues. But if their goal is to get the client in for a consult, psychologically, they also handle the call differently. If they see them as the scheduling department, if that's how they see themselves, right? Or just a receptionist that answers the phone, versus I like to, we use this powerful phrase in our call center. You're not a scheduling department. You're not a receptionist. You give hope. People are calling you. They're calling our firm because they believe that we have hope to offer them in their situation. So when you answer that phone, you are hope to the person on the other end. It might sound ethereal and weird and squishy, but I'm just telling you, there's something like they tell you when you're smiling, if you're on the phone and you smile, like it can kind of come through the phone, and they tell you that in sales all the time. And that's really what it is. I mean, it's a sales call with that person who's a non-lawyer, and empathy is incredibly important, or listening or understanding. And so whatever we can do, I think, to be measuring the right things in that process is one of those opportunities for making an incremental change. So if you notice, it seems like these calls are pretty short and we're not getting people in for the consults or scheduled. Maybe there's something going on there where the person is just seeing this as transactional and he's answering the call and not qualitative, right? So that was one thing I thought I would offer. The other thing is we started noticing and measuring days from the initial call or email to when they finally came in for the consult. So one thing was happening where attorneys just weren't available to do the consults. And so the days between when the person reached out and we actually were able to meet with them were growing. And in that time frame, they were meeting with other lawyers. And we all know the statistics. They're more likely to go with the very first lawyer that they meet with. So you want those clients meeting with you as soon as possible. So measuring days from the call to the consult could be another thing if you're starting to see something slip that you look at. So then we implemented, okay, this is how we're doing it. And we have a client who does this right now. We need to get clients in within 3 days. Within 3 days, we need to get the consult or else our retention percentage starts to tank. So if we need to get them in within 3 days, yes, we would love for them to meet with our best attorney that's great at doing consultations. But it's actually better for us if they maybe meet with our B player attorney at consults, but meet with them like today or tomorrow, than waiting a week to meet with this, other lawyer that happens to be good at consults. So that's another thing I wanted to throw out there that you might not be measuring, but that could be helpful for you in that process. The other thing that several of our clients we started tracking, which is a little bit irrelevant during the pandemic, but is the effectiveness of phone consults versus in-person consults. Phone consults were abysmal, mainly because they would get set up, but they would never happen. So what was happening was the lawyer would call the client or the potential client. They wouldn't answer. They'd leave a voicemail. The potential client wouldn't call back. And then the lawyer administratively wasn't doing a great job of then marking it or calendaring to try to call them back or to letting the receptionist know so they could reschedule. It was just all this hullabaloo. Or the lawyer might have been running late and the potential client tried calling them and then they didn't get synced up. So that was creating a lot of issues. Since then, what we've noticed is, and it's only because of our changing dynamic of our world, is that phone consults are just as effective right now as in person, solely because they're not available everywhere, right, to even do in person. And a lot of people don't want to do in person. So we have seen that improve. The other thing to consider measuring, if you've got multiple attorneys doing consults, which it sounds like Charlotte is doing this, is some people just are really shitty at communicating with people during a consult. I mean, they just are. Like, lawyers are great lawyers. They're brilliant. Get them in a room with a potential client and they are just awkward and weird, and they'll do a great job for them on their case, but they're not giving that client the warm and fuzzies, right? But the work will be done well. So that's something else to consider, is measuring by lawyer and the effectiveness by lawyer, and not having an ego or a pride around, if you're managing partner or your owner and you're not very good at consults, like, there's nothing that says you're the one that has to be doing those consults. It's better for your business to get someone who's really good at them to be doing those consults. The other thing we were just talking about recently too is that most consumers aren't sophisticated enough of legal services to understand a lawyer that is an expert in a practice area and a lawyer that's a generalist in a practice area. All that to say, if you've got a lawyer that's very good with people and they're primarily in your personal injury practice, and they don't, they're a specialist in personal injury, but you could put them in a consult with a divorce client and they know enough to be able to have enough conversation, right? But they're very empathetic and they're great. Don't be afraid of that. We tend to just put people in their boxes, I think. And you might have to incentivize the lawyers. Don't get me wrong. I mean, lawyers, either they love consults or they don't love them. And if they're spending their time doing that and not billing time, then they need to understand that they're going to, get something out of it, right? I mean, clearly that's a component of all of this. So those are just a few other measurements I thought I would throw out there for you all to consider if you're not already measuring it, and things to think of. And then ultimately the business measurement, right? What is my value per case, and how can I really look at, what's my pipeline of deals that I have available, because that is future revenue that I could be realizing, and incentive to try to get those clients in the door. If I just see them as 5 clients and I don't see them as $50,000, again, it might be psychological, but I'm going to be treating it differently. If I see it as $50,000, I'm going to say, yeah, I want to keep going after that $50,000. Not just, oh yeah, I want to try to retain 5 more clients, right? It just brings reality, I think, into what you're looking at. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about is process efficiency and integration, technology integration, which are connected. I love, Erica, that you're using Clio Grow. So let's get other people to chime in. Is anybody else using an intake software or a CRM, customer relationship management system, or anything like that? I know Zoe at BAMSL, you guys use Member Central, but do you use that also for a potential, how you're tracking potential sponsors, potential members? Maybe you guys jump in and share what you're using in terms of software, or if you're not using software at all.
As Jamie mentioned, we use Member Central, and it's an association software, so it'll be a little bit different, but this is the best platform that we've had, that you can divide up into groups and just share information. Like you said, we look at potential sponsors or potential members and keep a separate group for that. So it's been a great platform for us. I think that's a little different from a law firm, but still.
But do you use it for potentials too, Zoe, or is it primarily just for your members? Meaning, like when you've got members you're trying to recruit or retain and you've got sponsors, does it function for you kind of like a CRM where it will remind you, oh, reach out to this person, or do you just have your own tickler system?
Yeah, like we have right now, we have 2 hours coming up. It's the end of the reporting period, and so people that haven't gotten their hours can sign up for a 15-hour marathon, and 99% of those are not BAMSL members, and so we use that to follow up afterwards to say, wasn't that a great experience? And it will remind us that you sent a follow-up to Mike, and then no response, so do it again.
Sure. Okay. Anybody else? I want to jump in. How are you using software in your intake process?
Jamie, I'm not aware that we're using anything. So if we are, I'm just not aware of it.
Ooh, you should be. You should look.
Yeah, we don't use any of it.
You too, Randy. I mean, with the size of your firms.
Yep.
Oh, no problem, Zoe. Have a good day. Zoe has to hop off.
See you, Zoe.
With the size of your firms, I mean, it just becomes it's an efficiency thing, right? It's efficiency and it's effectiveness, right? And how, like I said, I think when we first started out is how are you stewarding those leads or those opportunities? Because you could be stewarding them, meaning I really value these opportunities and I'm going to follow them closely through this process to improve my at-bat percentage, right, of being able to retain them. And if you think about how many things probably just get forgotten about just due to lack of organization, or how long does the intake process take if you're just emailing out a Word doc or a PDF that then has to be printed and signed and sent back versus using an automated system like Clio Grow, where, Clio Grow is just one of many, but, it's pretty slick in getting clients in quickly, getting those fee agreements signed quickly so they don't like trail off. We had one client who, it's like the lawyers were doing work on this case because the process wasn't in sync of the matter getting opened, but the client hadn't even signed their fee agreement yet. And then the client ultimately ended up like not signing the fee agreement. Well, then the lawyer had done work, right? So using a software can make sure those things are in place before you even do that. The matter doesn't even open until the fee agreement's in there and it flows over. I know I'm preaching to the choir though.
Yeah, well, of course, that assumes that everybody's interested in efficiency, and you have to have an overall buy-in to that.
Fair. You know what I love saying this, and it's going to sound like a bit of an exaggeration, but I don't know any equity partner that if you said to them, how would you like to have an extra $100,000 a year in your pocket, would say no, right? Now, I get it, like the aversion to change and the pain of the process of change is oftentimes what prevents people from making the change. But I think it's because they don't equate it to the dollars in their pocket at the end of the year. But we can calculate those dollars by saying, we know we retain this amount of clients. So, and we know this is our average value per case. So if we could retain 60% of our potentials instead of 50%, that's 10% more cases that are coming in the door at this value. And so that's I think that's the thing that gets people over the edge to finally pull the trigger and make a decision. And then if you've got the right people in place or the right business partner to help you, then we can manage the change for you. I think that's the reason why people don't change most of the time, is they think they have to manage it all themselves and it'll just never get implemented or get done, or it won't be done well, or we keep kicking the can down the road. So anyway.
Well, I think a lot of them, think, hey, it's not broke. It ain't broke, don't fix it, because they're their income is sufficient, and what they do is they compare, well, doing this would require me to do something different. As we've said, change is bad. There's resistance to change and resistance to doing it somewhere else, and there is this block that changing the way you do things is not efficient.
Right.
As best I can figure out, having been here my career and watched us for decades try to implement one thing or another that would seem to be more efficient and just not. And very much, I think it's there's broad application of that to the profession, but certainly firms like ours where we're very relaxed, and much more relaxed than many, and not structured, and that certainly there's good things with that, and there's bad things that go along with that. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Well, anybody else want to jump in about software and integration? One more note I'll make about integration, and there's a lot of really great, I think, intake software programs out there like Clio Grow. If you're using Clio, makes a lot of sense, but not everyone's using Clio. Clio Grow is not a great CRM, meaning it was really built to intake clients, and then they tried to tack on the CRM component, meaning how do we track referral sources and leads and conversions, but it doesn't have any integration with like a drip campaign is another thing I thought I would mention. So when your potential client comes in and you've met with them, but they don't retain right away, what are you doing to keep that connection with them in an automated way so you don't forget, right? If it's a CRM that will remind you of a task to reach out, or if you can automatically put them into a little email campaign that's not monotonous. I'm not talking about bombarding people, but a week after their consult, they get a little email that says, hey, it was, just a reminder, it was great meeting with you. If you still have a need, let me know. If not, I wish you all the best, right? And that can be automated, where it sounds very personal. It's automated. Maybe 2 weeks after that, they get another email that says, just following up, please let us know what your needs might be. We hope you have a great day. And then maybe they get nothing else, and they get put into your regular once a month e-newsletter or every other month e-newsletter. And they might not be ready to pull the trigger, but it's got your brand and your name in front of them on a consistent basis. And if you're using a software program, it can take all the work out of that for you, and you can automate it and create that efficiency. We've done that for several of our clients. Lawmatics is another built specifically for law firms, and it's an intake software and a CRM. It's the only one that I know of in the industry that's truly doing both, and it's fairly new. The guy who owns it started MyCase. If you're familiar with MyCase, he was the CEO of MyCase, former lawyer, or still licensed lawyer, but runs this other company. And it's got integration, email marketing tool, measures everything. And it's also got an integration with several of the case management platforms. So it will also open the matter in that platform as an intake component. So it's got that efficiency and integration built in as well. And managing your potential opportunities. Is it giving you a task or reminder at the end of the week, hey, reach out to this potential client to follow up. So highly encourage the use of software to keep you all efficient, but also to make it more efficient for the client. So when you send out documents, they can sign them digitally, and that all happens in a seamless and smooth way. And then you don't have to manually be tracking what you've gotten back and what documents you have gotten back. So I think software integration, it can be huge. And again, if you can retain just a few more clients just by improving that process and making it easy for them to sign. If they can just sign right from their mobile device, they're going to do it right when they get it, versus if they have to print something out and sign, or even doing a digital PDF, or if you're sending through Adobe PDF to request signature, of course that's, still a little bit more efficient, but then you still have to download that PDF and then upload it to their file. But there's still all those things. So I think software integration is a really critical component to the intake process and making sure you're capturing more of those opportunities. Since they're already coming in the door, you're already paying for them to get in on the phone in the first place. Might as well, retain more of them as clients. Cool. This has been a great discussion. Thank you all so much for sharing what you're doing. I hope you've gotten a few ideas. Anybody have any good things or limericks or jokes they might want to share here at the end? I thought I forgot to send myself the image, but I'll tell you all about it because I think it's hilarious. Someone sent me this meme earlier with, because I'm starting to travel a little bit again. And it's a guy standing at the ticket counter at the airport, and he's got a leash on a bar cart, and it says, "This is my support bar cart system. I'm gonna need to take it on the plane with me." Like your support animal. Yeah, this is my service and support bar cart. I'm gonna need to take this on the plane with me. I thought that was really clever because flying now you're only allowed to drink water.
Yeah, I'm on a Zoom now.
So you gotta pregame in the airport, I guess, before you get on the plane if you want any sort of adult beverage. I thought that was really clever.
I saw something like that. It's on a T-shirt or on a sticker, which says liquor, the glue that's holding this shit show together. Which is just bad.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I saw a video and it was very clean, and I wish I could find it, but it was called Date Night, and this couple are getting serious. They're at dinner, and he looks at her and she looks at him and says, we're getting pretty serious. He says, but I got something I got to confess. And she goes, what? And she looked very troubled, perplexed. He goes, I'm a golf fanatic. I live, breathe, eat, sleep. It's all about golf. And she goes, really? And she goes, well, I have something I have to confess too. And he goes, well, what? She goes, well, I'm a hooker. And he goes, a hooker? He goes, well, I can fix that. Let's go out on the course tomorrow and I'll tell you how you line up the ball and you straighten the ball. You have to see it. It was great.
I know we can go look it up. That's hilarious.
It's called Date Night.
Date Night. Okay, awesome. Love you all so much. Value your time. Thank you for contributing. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Janie, for doing
Have a good holiday weekend, everybody.
Yep,
Thanks.
enjoy.
Bye, everybody.